Okay, we are now recording. And
Now,
we
now that
are,
we got Carl here, we're really ready to go.
yeah, now that Carl's here, you reminded me, Carl, that we need to record. So we're 15 minutes into, although we
That's
talked a little bit about India. So
that's why I came late. So you're welcome.
thank you. Thank you. Thank you. If you would have come earlier, maybe I would have recorded. No. So we're into King Lear, and Nielsen, you gave a great synopsis of the story. Lots more details though, but still really good. So my question then was, as Carl was coming in, was what was the first error, do you think, contained in the story? Because of course we could go way back, talking about maybe parenting techniques that maybe he didn't do with his two older daughters. Let me get a count for Jolene and Carl. Have you been able to start King Lear by any chance?
Yep.
Okay, great. So we've got a few that have read it in the past and a few that have read it. And what do you think was his first error?
I'm seem to, I don't know. This is from 3 years ago. It's running around my head, but I think what we talked about was that I don't know, that Lear shouldn't have like given up his kingdom, as in he was still fine. Like, I don't know, that was totally like still fine to be in charge. That he like gave his kingdom up to like unstable daughters. That was kind of bad, poor decision.
Yes, good. I'm just kind of writing some of these things down on the whiteboard if you're there. So gave up his kingdom and I'm going to say unworthy daughters. Gave it to his unworthy daughters. Good. I don't know why that's in bold. I probably should share my screen so that I'm okay. Nielsen, I think I'm going to mute you. There's some kind of background. That doesn't mean I don't want you to participate. There's some kind of background noise that's, I don't know. I was hearing it. And okay, there we go. So he gave up his kingdom to unworthy daughters. Let's go deeper into that. How might that be an error?
Well, I think going back to what we read a couple of weeks ago, King Lear is, a prince, and Machiavelli, I think his whole essay was written about, I don't know, the sustainability of being a prince and how do you stay in power. So I think from one opinion, just deciding to stop being a prince or stop being a king is some kind of an error.
Good. Okay, what else? How would you apply that principle in a family? I mean, this was a family, but it was, of course, the reigning family, the monarchical family. But how would you apply this first one? The issue that we're talking about here and the first one to a family.
I think well, in a family, of course, the children grow up to and get to a point to where they need to be making their own decisions, and the parents shouldn't be telling them everything that they should be doing. But I think to some degree, the relationship between like the grown-up child and the adult still should be one of like counseling in a way, and to where like the parents in a sense stay in power by like being able to communicate and counsel and suggest things to their kids that they think like might help them. Granted, the kids have their own agency, but that I feel like that communication and that type of relationship is a way to keep the knowledge and the power that the older generation has, like continuing on to the younger generation.
Yeah, and I want to go right where you said, what is that power in that family? What kind of word can we give that power? I don't know. I really don't know. I want to explore it with you. What would that power be? Sometimes when we hear the word power, it's just kind of a cover up word. No, it's an overall word for something that we really want to get to, but we haven't yet figured it out. What is that power? I love what you said. That keeps the communication. There's counseling going on, but there's this power. But what is that? It's another word for that.
I could see part of it being like respect in a way. Respect both directions.
Yeah. You were in the East, Caleb and Hiram. Not quite East as I'm thinking of the Chinese, where their ancestors are the most adored, most worshipped people. I don't know if it's that way in India.
It's not really,
okay.
no.
Okay. So in China, there is an incredible, I can't remember what kind of love. Is it called filial love? Filial?
Is filial just for your descendants though? I don't know.
I don't know, but it's
Maybe so.
their love goes beyond them, before them. It goes to their ancient, even their parents who have passed away, their grandparents, the people that they knew that passed away before them. Those people are actually worshipped and honored, and they don't dare do anything that would cross one of them. And they reverence the place of their burial. And there's kind of this power that they're showing. And I think of the word respect, Caleb, like you said. Any other ideas about what this power could be? Jolene, you and I are the only ones in here that have children. What word comes to your mind?
Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is that my husband, now granted, for us, it's a religious priesthood authority, but there is some sense of authority that comes with being the father or patriarchal role in the family.
Yeah, there is some authority. Hopefully it's not, and I know in your family it's not, but most of the time we do want to keep that authority in a kind, gentle manner, be a true leader that loves and cares. Sometimes it can be usurped. Sometimes it can be taken away because that authority means something different to the person who's taking it away. Every single virtue can be either evil or good depending on the way it's used. So power, respect, somebody could respect somebody, but for the wrong reasons. Maybe to get something, they can show that respect. Maybe they're not really having true respect, but everything we can do for evil or for good, depending on how we are doing it. So if a king, what was his purpose? And maybe some of you who studied it 3 years ago might not remember, but what was his purpose of giving up his kingdom?
To shake all cares and business from our age, conferring them on younger thoughts, on younger strengths, seems to be the general purpose.
Yes. He kind of wanted just to
hang out.
Yeah, he wanted to go be with his daughters and not have that responsibility more. Yeah, I'm going to put down hang out. I like that. Oh my goodness, I can't even. Hang out. Give away his responsibility in that manner. Good. When we look at a parent, or we look at, imagine our parents, imagine us as parents. What happens when we give up our responsibility to just hang out? What happens to a family? What happens to a community when families do that, when parents do that?
I don't know. I mean, it seems to me like if the parents kind of take on that mentality, they're putting less effort into their identity as like parents. And so whether that means that they just like send their kids to daycare and just like don't really interact with them very much, or whether, whenever their kids want something, they just give it to them because they don't want to go through like the arguing or whatever, to actually, I don't know, be a good parent. So I think I don't know, if they're just wanting the easy way right now, just hanging out, then, I don't know, there's consequences later on with their children, I think.
I think you're right. Anybody want to add to that? Maybe like what might be those consequences? What is the result?
Spoiled brats. But
yeah.
There's a thing we've been thinking about, and kind of a pattern that you can see in different generations of families. And it's where, like, say, like this first generation that you were observing, they started a business and like got the family, or like started a family business and started it growing, and they put in a lot of work and effort into that. And the second generation continues that work. They grew up building it, and then while they're raising their kids, they continue to build on the business or company or whatever. But then a lot of times when you observe the third generation is the ones that grew up with the business already like really prosperous and efficient. And so they're the ones that, once the business or whatever gets passed on to them, the business, the wealth, the kingdom, whatever it is, they didn't grow up with, I don't know, like the character building of hard work. And so the business or the kingdom kind of just gets run into the ground. And it's not exactly like that all the time, but it's kind of a cycle that you can see a lot of times. And I feel like that's kind of a cause that happens because when parents want to just hang out, or once it's possible to like I said, like give their kids whatever they want because they just don't want the argument, then that's when the next generation, the spoiled brats, comes into play.
Love that. Good. Any other thoughts?
I also think there end up being holes in other places. So just as I've never read King Lear before, but just as I've started reading it, it mentions that the youngest, Cordelia, is his favorite. So it's kind of given me a picture that maybe he hung out with her more, maybe he spent more time with her, but didn't really with the older two. And so the older two definitely see money as more of a to show love, and the younger one doesn't. And so it leaves holes in those other places. Like the older two, definitely they are feeling the weight of not getting the attention, the personal attention that they needed when all they got was money. And the younger one is now getting kicked out because she's not willing to show that money's important, but really she's like, I've got what I need. It's the love of my father. So I think you see it in families across the board that they might grow up getting what they want money-wise, but they're not getting the emotional and mental needs taken care of.
It almost reminds me of the external. They're getting external things, but they're not. Their internal compass is not growing. It's not building. And Caleb brought up there are components to having that character, building that character. And that's a lot of it is hard work. I think that's 2 words, hard work. And a lot of it is having parents that don't give up, that actually face their children and help them prune. Has anybody ever pruned a fruit tree? By raise of hands? Okay. Why do we prune a tree?
You can kind of direct where you want it to go, whether you want it to grow a certain direction or whether you want it to produce more fruit and have a bigger yield.
Yeah. And you have to kind of know your trees, right? So there's an apple tree that has a straight upward direction. It's kind of, its habit goes upward and out, whereas a peach tree and a plum tree goes outward and just spreads out. And you need to know those trees and you need to know how to prune them. What's interesting is what method do you use to allow your trees to have more fruit? Is that something that you know, probably, Caleb?
You have to cut off, because at least when I remember doing it, the trees, the buds that they produce is way more than actual nutrients that they have to make that many fruits. So you have to cut off a lot of the potential buds and fruits so that it can make more fruit, kind of.
Exactly. That's one of those. Another is if you've got, a tree growing up and you've got some branches that are going inward, you even cut off those branches that are going inward and you keep the outward growing branches. You can keep some of the upward, but it's usually better to have the outward growing branches, which is interesting because if you look at pride and you look at good parents try to help their children cut out the inward growing branches of their growth, or the selfish branches. Or if they've got too much on their plate, think of all the buds that you're cutting off so that their fruit becomes bigger. You help them hone it down. You help them trim those things down. So it's interesting that we're talking about this, and back in the day when King Lear lived, if he did live, he must have lived in you lived in a place where you could grow some kinds of orchards, some kinds of fruit trees. And you would think that he would notice, by virtue of cutting some of those buds and those branches, or having his servants do that, that's how you parent as well. Of course, you don't chop things down and take a chainsaw to your tree. You do it in a kind manner. It's like you do pruning. Interesting. Any thoughts on that? Any thoughts on pruning and parenting? And
I guess my only other thought is that I think I don't know. I think there's definitely truth in these things that we've been talking about. I think it's also, I don't know. It's entirely possible also for a good parent who does everything right to raise a child who has, bad character, who makes other choices. So I think, as far as parenting goes versus fruit trees, I don't know. It's interesting because there's different, wills involved, different individuals that have their own choices. So
absolutely.
So you can't judge a parent entirely based on their children. So, maybe King Lear did do everything correctly, and, he had a Laman and Lemuel for his first two daughters. So.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm glad you brought that up, and because that is true. However, it is really good to know that some of the reasons why people themselves can falter. And King Lear did not falter because of his daughters, but he faltered because of his choices. And I think that's what you're talking about. Everybody has their choice. We falter because we've chosen. Am I wrong? My parents were good parents, but I still have all the decisions to make. So I agree with that. I think that's good. Jolene, you brought up about love. You brought something up about love, and maybe we'll go here. How does King Lear measure love? And by the way, those of you who are up on this whiteboard, come up with some of your own questions or quotes, because I'd love to help. How does King Lear measure love? I think it might be different from the beginning and the end.
Well, in the beginning, it kind of seems like he measures it in just his daughter's outward, like words saying that they loved him and flattering him and stuff, and then also somewhat in money or in material things, as in they love him, so oh, okay, so I'll give you half my kingdom since you love me.
Good. Yeah. Is this okay to measure love this way? Hiram, you're kind of smirking.
I don't know. It seems like, at least for what I remember from King Lear, I guess the first two daughters, they flattered him a ton and ranted off about how much they loved him and stuff. When in the end, the youngest daughter was actually the one that loved him the most, but since she didn't flatter him, I guess, as much. I don't know. This is from what I remember from 3 years ago. So
no, I think you're exactly right. And Cordelia, how did she measure love? I think you could answer that, because I think you were there. You're going down that path. Hiram.
So I don't super remember what happened to the point to where he banished her to France or whatever. But
I remember just kind of like, she's like, I love you, like without measure, whatever, and like no words will um, describe how much I love you. And that's not really what he was looking for. He was wanting like, oh, you're so great, like you're amazing, like, oh no, I guess.
He wanted words. He didn't want the heart of his
Yeah.
daughter, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess words go under the flattery, but yeah. Good. And Cordelia, I think you were right on. You got a great memory. Cordelia, whoops, here it is. Cordelia was interesting because France was in there. France and Burgundy was in there when he was asking his daughter, Cordelia. And she, where is that? I love the word she says. It's close to the beginning. Yeah, it's Act 1, Scene 1 even, right? So line, where does she say nothing?
97, 6, 96.
Oh, that soon? Okay, I was going even further over where France was. Oh yeah, there it is. So she says nothing. But then if you go further, when France and Burgundy come in and they hear about what's going on, Lear says in 197, but now her price has fallen. And he's talking to Burgundy, and Burgundy wants the same dowry that he was promised, but Lear's saying, no, her price has fallen. And then France is starting to figure this out, and this is in 214. This is most strange, that she, whom even but now was your best object, the argument of your praise, balm of your age, the best, the dearest, should in this trice of time commit a thing so monstrous to dismantle so many folds of favor. And he goes on even further. He says down in 242, he says, she is herself a dowry. He doesn't care about the money. He doesn't care about anything that might come with her monetarily or materially. He recognizes her as a dowry for herself. She's presenting himself or herself to him as the greatest. So how does France measure love?
I think he sees it as more pure when it's not mixed with ulterior motives or possible ulterior motives.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we go on. Well, I guess it kind of goes into more detail about what France loves best about Cordelia. I think you were right. I should have started way back here at the beginning. Oh, she complains, unhappy that I am, I cannot heave my heart into my mouth. I love your majesty according to my bond, no more or no less. What might that mean? This was line 92, 3 and 4.
I think in my mind, she's kind of expressing the temperance of her love, which I don't know. I think it's interesting. Like later on, she says, I don't know. It seems like she compares like her love to what her sisters have expressed their love for her father. And she says, like, if I loved you as much as they said they love you, then I would never marry because you're all I want. All I want is you, my father. So why would I leave you to go get married or have another family if you're everything to me? So
Yeah, part of her love goes to her spouse.
yeah.
Or should I say future spouse?
So I don't know. I think she takes a broader perspective in this moment. Like realistic, I guess.
Love that. Good. Really good. Anybody want to add to that? What do you think? Oops. Oh, trying to make this bigger. Good. And then a question, maybe, how do you measure love? And we can share that, or you can think of it in your mind. How do you measure love? Now, I'm not talking, young men, about the love that involves Cupid. But how do you measure love? How should we measure love?
Well, I don't know. I guess in my mind, it looks like most of the things that we talked about how King Lear measured love, at least at the beginning of the play, are all like, I don't know, they're all like fruits or actual things that people do or express or say. And I think for most people, that's how most people measure love, even if it's, I don't know. I think if you don't do anything for someone or with someone or say anything to them, then, there's no reason for me to think that, that there's love there. So I don't know. I think it's really interesting.
It's a big subject.
Yeah.
But basically, it could start out in the similar way, right?
Mom always wants you to say, I love you after you talk to her, right?
Yeah.
And is it just words, or are you actually meaning it? She wants you to say it anyway. I don't know,
Good. What do you think, Nielsen?
Yeah, I think for sure what we said, like starting out in that way for sure. But I think it's more about like your actions versus, it's like money and material things. So like, let's say I'm married and I have a wife. I like want to provide her with a house and like whatever, and flatter her and tell her she's beautiful and stuff. But like, if my actions don't like match what I'm saying, then it's like nobody even cares what I'm saying. Like actions speak louder than words. So
words. Like, how's it go? It's from My Fair Lady. I'm so sick of words, or something. She sings to, what's his name? Freddie. My husband sings that song that's called Let a Woman in Your Life and You Invite Eternal Strife. Anyway, fun. Yeah, I think love has many aspects. What can you add to this, Jolene?
Well, I was just going to say, now, granted, my husband and I were reading this as a couple, but there are other books that are not specifically couple-minded, but we read the 5 love languages, and it really was so helpful to understand what your partner's love language is so that you know how to best express it. And they have the 5 love languages for children, and Tad and I have thought about how that applies to how we help our children. And gifts is one, and showing words of appreciation or words of affirmation is one, but so is service, and so is just spending time together, quality time. So I think they're all worthwhile things, but if all you're doing is giving gifts or saying great words, then you're right. It's probably not filling their bucket the way that it should, whether it's your mom you're talking to or your sister or your spouse, whatever the purpose is. I think the 5 love languages is really key to figuring it out.
Yeah. So it goes along with this, and it includes many of these things, even flattery sometimes. What's interesting is the motive behind things, and I think that might be what you were trying to say too, Nielsen. I didn't mean trying to say, because you did say it. I meant, I think the motive behind our love can be the two extremes, good and bad, and everything in between too. So there's such a complicated way to measure love. Good. Anybody want to add to any of that?
I guess I just want to say one more thing. I think, I don't know, us reading this play, I think it seems really easy to see that, Regina and what's the other girl named?
Goneril,
like, are shallow, and it's like they're just saying that, and like, right away that Cordelia is the one who really loves her father. But I think in the situation, like, he's biased for his daughters, and he's emotionally invested in the situation. And so I think, I don't know, in this discussion that we had, a lot of times in the moment, without a lot of background, it can be hard to tell whether someone actually loves you or whether you actually love someone or not. I don't know. I think that's something that comes with time. And so I think, I don't know, I think he made an error of judgment, but I think it's an error that a lot of people make.
and I think that's Shakespeare knew that, and that's why he's writing this play.
Yeah.
He is the master at why is this doing this? Oh, that's funny. I've got it off the page. He's a master of human nature, right? Let me just do something really quickly because this is bugging me. Better. Okay. Yeah. And I think that's another thing about Shakespeare. He's going to bring up all sorts of extremes, all sorts of characters that show these extremes, so people can hold up a mirror to themselves and see where am I in this extreme? What can I do to be better? So I like what you said, Carl. Love is a process that comes with time. Good. Okay. What are some other questions or places you want to take us? The time is yours. If you can make some comments here, write them, or I can write them. Take us
That
where
just
you
really
want
reminded me of, like, the time is now yours, brothers and sisters, till 5 after the hour.
to go. Bear your testimony about King Lear.
And then it's the silence of, like, who's gonna go? Who's gonna go?
And then I'm going to stand up and wield my authority and say, it's your turn, Nielsen. Share.
Oh no, wait, was that, like, theoretical, like you were gonna ask that, or, like, did you actually just ask that?
I'm going to let you decide.
No.
No, will you please bear your testimony about King Lear? No. Share a principle that that sticks out to you?
Ooh.
All right, I'm putting you on the spot.
Give me a couple minutes.
Yeah, I will give you a couple minutes. Think about it. Anybody else? Bring us to a place that was interesting to you, or that you don't have the book in front of you and might be interesting. You can kind of remember a few details, and we'll help you find it. I have only read up to Act 3, Scene 3, so I have not gone beyond that today. I'll finish tomorrow.
I have that really shaded. There's a quote by Kent that I really liked in Act 1, Scene 3.
Okay. Say what line number this is really quickly. 250.
I was going to say, I don't have line numbers in my book.
Oh, you don't? Okay, so it's Act
big.
Act what?
Act 1, Scene 3.
Okay. And no line numbers?
Nope, I have no line numbers, but it's right after. So at the first of Scene 3, there's do you say it Goneril and Oswald?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I lied. Okay, it's right at the beginning of Scene 4. Sorry, I didn't see Scene 4. It's right there.
Scene 4. Okay.
Kidding.
No problem.
So right after King Lear enters, Lear speaks to Kent. So it'll be the third time that Kent speaks in Scene 4.
I do profess?
Yes.
Okay.
It says, I do profess to be no less than I seem, to serve him truly that will put me in trust, to love him that is honest, to converse with him that is wise, and say little, to fear judgment, to fight when I cannot choose, and to eat no fish. Not that I understand what the eat no fish part, but I thought that seemed kind of interesting as something to live by, that the people that you honor or serve are the ones that confide in you, and you can confide in them, that are closest to you. And the people that you love the most are the ones that are honest with you and not just fake or flattering to you. And that you want to be speaking with the people that are wise, but they don't just chit chat away. It reminded me of Benjamin Franklin, where he's willing to only say things when it's important to say something. And it seems like there's somebody else that I read about that's has that kind of quality too. Anyways, but that whole quote it kind of stuck out to me.
And here's Kent, who was banished from the king, just sent away by the king, and he's returning in disguise, and the king asks him who he is, and this is he's telling the king who he really is. And I love what you said, but I'm gonna be mean now. I'm gonna say, is that how he stayed?
I don't know. I haven't read much farther past that. So.
Okay. Who else has read beyond this one? And at least till Act 2, Scene 4, where, let me just find out here. This is actually the first time I've read this play in my life, so I'm just still trying to memorize it. Where is it when he fights with Oswald? Anybody know? Okay, it can't be that far because I haven't read that far. I read it today, where he fights with Oswald. Aha! Act 2, Scene 2. He basically lets his tongue get away from him, and he instigates a sword fight with Oswald. And if you look at this Act 2, Scene 2, line 15, he's talking to Oswald and tells him what he feels, and he just goes on and on, and it basically is going to be, it's going to put his person down. I don't know what Shakespeare was drinking when he said, a knave, a rascal, an eater of broken meats. What does that mean? A base, proud, shallow, beggarly, three-suited, 100-pound, filthy, worsted, talking knave, a lily-livered, action-taking, horse and glass-gazing, super-serviceable, finical tongue, one truck, and it just goes on. Inheriting. One trunk inheriting slave. But I haven't read to the end. Has anybody read to the end what Kent turns out to be? Does he continue to be this good, honest person?
I honestly don't remember. I want to believe that he stays good and true, but like I don't actually remember.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I'm one of those people who read it a while ago, but if I remember right, it seems like Oswald is one of the servants to one of the dukes or daughters that have inherited the kingdom. So I think Kent being loyal to the king is somewhat justified in being angry with Oswald, or at least who Oswald is affiliated with.
Good comment.
So even though he's saying this stuff, I don't think this stuff that he's saying, or even him beating Oswald, is in contradiction to what he said to the king earlier. I mean, he's honest in his relationship with the king. He's defending the king. He's on the king's side. So I think this is in defense of what he was saying to the king.
Good.
So I don't know if he can go back to good. I don't know. I think he's fine.
Okay. Very good. Sometimes I do myself a disservice, Carl, by reading the commentaries at the end, which talks about it basically says that Kent seems to be quite the hero. Classical heroes are dedicated to a cause, display unfailing loyalty, like what you were saying, function well in disguise, and seek higher morals and values. And it goes on to say Kent is more humane in his humanity than are many of the other characters encountered thus far. In his loyalty, Kent is quick-tempered and aggressive, traits that will get him into trouble in the future. And so when I saw that, I thought, okay, something is coming from this because of his quick temper and aggressiveness. So do you remember in the future, does he get himself in trouble because of this?
He doesn't die. So
he's one of the few.
If that ruins the story for you or
No.
not, I don't know, but he's alive at the end. So
That's
better than
amazing.
some.
Yeah. No, actually, I didn't even know. I just read this, and it says it gets him into trouble. So I'm just curious what that trouble is. But that's the commentary, and we ought to stay away from those and just read the original book. You talked about loyalty, and I've got a question about this. Define loyalty. And what, and was it right for Kent to stay loyal to the king? What is loyalty? Of course, it can be different for many different people. Whoops, I did not mean to do that. Alexa, stop. Got loud music going on in there. Alexa is loyal and obedient. Does anybody have an Alexa? They're kind of fun. Anyway.
But she's biased with whatever Amazon programs her with. So is she really loyal to you, or is she just feeding you what Amazon wants her to feed you?
There you go. Okay, so besides her, how would you define loyalty? I'm going to pick on Hiram. Hiram, how would you define loyalty?
I don't know. I guess just like the basic definition, just like true to whoever you're loyal to.
Okay.
And just, yeah.
Okay.
I don't really know how else to put it.
Good. Anything else? Anybody?
I think it's interesting, it just made me think, the difference of, being loyal to an idea versus loyal to a person. Because, to me, loyalty to an idea, it's I believe in this, this is right, I'm going to, support this cause or whatever and try to convince others of what I believe, is true, or, something I'm being loyal to it to, support its interests and stuff. But, it's interesting to think, I feel like a lot of ideas are pretty constant. In a lot of ways, but people a lot of times can change and stuff. So it is interesting. So for Kent to stay loyal to the king as he goes insane, I don't know. It's that's not just an idea that's pretty solid that it's going to stay the same. It's this guy, no one knows what's happening to this guy. So I think loyalty to a person, I think, is harder to define.
Good observation. Carl.
I don't know. Was the king going mentally insane?
I haven't read that far. Carl, what do you think?
I don't know. It's been a while.
I seem to remember him outside in a storm, flipping out hardcore.
Okay, I read to that point today, Act 3. He was out in the storm because no one would let him come in. What's that?
I just said, I was like, oh no, it's been 3 years since I've read to that point.
Yeah, Regan and Goneril and Gloucester don't let him in, so he's out in the storm. But I haven't read anywhere beyond Act 3, Scene 2. So, I don't know.
I guess in my mind, I don't know if I would describe him as going insane, but it seems like he's encountering all of these consequences that are happening from a decision that he made, and he didn't see any of this happening. He thought he was going to give up his kingdom to his daughters, and then he would just be able to lay low and just chill. They would take care of all the business, but he would have all the benefits of being a king. But slowly, one by one, they're taking away all of his benefits, and now he's like to the uttermost, desperation. He's out in the storm with no clothes,
And no
which
man.
which is something he's never probably experienced before in his life, or pictured. And so I think for him, he's living in a kind of different reality. So I think in some way he might feel, I don't know, insane or crazy or something, because all of his experience in life doesn't guide him in this instance, it seems like. I don't know. Everything is led up to him giving up his kingdom. Maybe that was something he looked forward to for a long time. I don't know. But now he's in this situation, and it seems like he doesn't know what to do. So,
And Kent is with him.
Kent's with him.
Kent's with him. What causes him to stay with him? I guess the loyalty, but loyalty to really what? What's in it for him? Are we loyal because there's something in it for us? What's causing him to stay loyal?
Maybe I don't know, maybe like Kent, so Kent is like one of his household like noblemen, kind of, right?
Yeah.
I mean, to put it, so maybe like, in past years, Lear's been like this great king that Kent's looked up to and stuff. And so he's just like, he loves his king and stuff. So even when, he's technically, I guess, no longer king, Kent is still staying loyal to him because, I don't know, like, he remembers the man he used to be, or that he is still, and he respects him. I guess I don't know. It'd be, to me, like, if my dad was like fall and still go crazy or something, or I mean, okay, who knows if it goes crazy? But, yeah. So if my sisters took over his kingdom, and I feel like I'd still like stay loyal to him and try to, I don't know, just because I respect him.
Okay. That's putting it closer to home, and that makes sense. What else is out there for him? Hey, I'm going to stay connected to this guy who was a king, and in my eyes, he's still pretty much the king for me. There's nothing else out there for me. So, and also, I've been through thick and thin with him. I'm going to stay with him. Good. What else? Any other thoughts? Are you trying to talk? Not Jacoby. Jolene?
Jacoby isn't it good, though? I like that.
Isn't that a fun name? It's her daughter's name.
Oh, I was going to say, like, can we just call her Jacoby now?
I know.
You can call me Jacoby. It's okay.
Yay.
She's cooler than me anyways.
She's a cute 13-year-old. Almost 14, right?
In December.
Yeah.
It's a problem.
Struggle.
You're the parent. Anything else you want to add to this, Julie?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I thought you were
no,
asking everyone.
No, everyone. Yeah. I was just pointing fingers to get it going.
Oh, okay. So I thought I kind of had back to defining loyalty a little bit, as I feel like loyalty can also be to a position. And so, like, I don't, I haven't read this part of it, so like I don't know exactly in Kent's position what it was, but I've seen through history a lot of times that, and I mean, you can even see it in the church history as well, so where there's, in some cases, there's more loyalty to the position than to the actual person filling the position. And So yeah,
see that. I
that's
see
just kind
that.
of what I wanted to say.
That's really good. Yeah. So no matter who the person might be, it's still the position that might be more important to the person according to their loyalty. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can see that. Good.
Wait.
Go ahead, Carl.
I just want to say one thought that kind of came to my mind. I think that's really interesting because, I don't know, at this point in the story, the king is not the king anymore because of this failure in judgment that he gave away his kingdom. So I think it's really interesting. I agree with you, Callum. I think that's true, but I don't know if it's Kent seeing the king as, the rightful king and just having made this one mistake that's kind of ruined everything, whereas in every other way he was a good king. I don't know. I think it's interesting though.
You made me think of how a lot of times in the thick of things, we don't really see what's going to come of the situation. And we may be blinded thinking that it's still a position. It's still a position that we're being loyal to. Sometimes we're blind. Sometimes we've got go ahead.
No, could it also be though that he maybe he for a small moment is seeing a little bit more vision than the king, and just like we all fall, we all make mistakes, but I haven't ever stopped being loyal to my family just because of some crazy screw up, and you go, oh, I cannot hang out with you or be your sister anymore because you did something really stupid. No, you helped pick them up and you worked with them and said, let me be a part of this and help you get back on your feet. And maybe that's kind of what Kent's feeling. I don't know. I haven't read this part yet, but maybe that's what he's thinking, is that he just wants to be the friend that helps pick you back up.
Yeah. Good. Some people are more comfortable that way. Let's just be a friend. And that goes back to where you took us, Jolene. He's a good, honest person. And like Carl said, he's loyal to the king or to the Lear, right? And he's loyal, and he defends this person because of that loyalty. Are we ready to move on to another thing that somebody wants to share?
Yeah, I have something I'd like to share real quick.
Great.
It's in Act 1, Scene 3. It's just, I'll just read it. It's at the very beginning. It's actually Goneril's second, line. By day and night he wrongs me. Every hour he flashes into one gross crime or another and sets us all at odds. I'll not endure it. His nights grow riotous and himself braids us on every trifle. When he returns from hunting, I will not speak with him. Say I am sick. If you come slack of former services, you shall do well. The fault of it I'll answer. So I feel like this is, right after King Lear gives his kingdom to his daughters, and already one of them's like, oh, he wrongs me, oh my goodness, he's such a nuisance, he's a terrible person. And I just think it's interesting how quick, it seems really quick, because the scene 2 is not about, it's about Edmund and Gloucester and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really the next scene after, in that kind of storyline, that right after, Goneril's just I don't know. I just think it's crazy how fast she goes, from oh, I love you so much. Yeah. Then as soon as she gets what she wants, which is, the kingdom, she's like, I'm not even going to talk to him when he comes back.
Mm-hmm.
So I just think it's interesting how seems like how two-faced she is.
Yes. Good. Anybody want to add to that? There's that slippery slope. Once we make a decision to go against somebody, our heart and our minds are flooded with all sorts of thoughts that just help us to go right down. What's the role of the fool in Shakespeare's plays?
I know we studied this and I can't quite remember, but I want to say he's like a wise man, or like he speaks the truth.
Yes, he's a wise man. It is so funny. Sometimes he's the wisest. What's Shakespeare trying to do here with that method, with this method of the fool? I'm trying to find a place where I marked, but I can't see it. Oh, go to Act 1, Scene 4. It's line 165. It's the middle of that little Lear is asking what 2 crowns shall they be. The fool's talking about 2 crowns. And it's, where is it? Maybe in the middle. Yeah, it's about in the middle of that scene. And the fool says, why, after I have cut the egg in the middle and eat up the meat, the 2 crowns of the egg. When thou clovest thy crown in the middle and gavest away both parts, thou borest thine ass on thy back o'er the dirt. And this is where it gets so funny. Thou hadst little wit in thy bald crown when thou gavest thy golden one away. If I speak like myself in this, let him be whipped that first finds it so. Fools had ne'er less grace in a year, for wise men are grown foppish, and know not how their wits to wear. Their manners are so apish, or oppish, I don't know, apish. The fools don't know what to do anymore because so many people are fools, he's saying, basically. Because the wise men have grown foppish. Interesting. Yeah, the fools are the wisest. Anybody else have something you want to share about the fool?
I kind of just had like a thought, like I feel like the fools play like a pretty special role, I guess, because like they don't really have any reputation to hold, kind of. So they can just like speak their mind and like the obvious truth of whatever situation that they're in, whereas like some of the other nobles like can't really like say the obvious. So like I don't know, I guess the fool kind of does that for them sometimes, or at least from what I remember.
Yeah,
I love that.
They can easily point out the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
I think their only limitation is that I feel like they're somewhat expendable. So if they make the king mad, he's just like, yo, done.
Yeah.
That would be my only thought.
And they can go find somebody else to pal around with. What's interesting though is you look at the fool in more modern books or plays. Let me think of one. Beauty and the Beast. What's his name? The Fool for Gaston. What's his name? That's what was the name?
LeFou.
LeFou. To me, it seems like that just sounds like the fool. But they're not wise. Although he does get wise for a second, realizing his master is kind of, he's going overboard. But I guess in the newest one that was done by actors, he's shown to be a little closely related to the fool in Shakespeare. But a lot of times the fools are bumbling, clumsy people. So interesting.
This kind of, I don't know how many of you have read this book. I know Caleb and Carl have, but I don't know if this is but it's like.
See, I was about to say something about the same book, just because today's a big
I
day for
think
that
I was
book.
going to say like the hype about it.
Wait, you're all talking at once. I can't understand.
So it's the Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson. It's done.
Wait, you gotta explain.
So basically, there's this character called Wit. That's his, or what he goes by. He's the King's Wit.
The King's Wit.
And he's ridiculous. And at first, you're just like, this guy's freaking retarded. He's so stupid. But he's funny. But I don't know. As you go on, you learn like he's actually super wise. He's like the smartest one out of them all. He knows more than everyone else combined.
Oh, cool. What's the name of it?
It's called, the Stormlight Archive.
Is the name of the series.
Stormlight
Yep.
Archive series.
If you're going to start those, be prepared. They're like 50-hour books.
So the fool is named Wit.
Yep.
Good to know. Love it. So he's a bumbling fool, but he is extremely wise. Love that. That's cool. So Shakespeare probably was the one that kind of invented that little trope. I don't think it's a trope, but what I mean is invented that device for plays. Hey, time is up. We're going to continue reading the King Lear. Tomorrow's the last day, and then we begin
King Richard III.
Yes. Has anybody read King Richard III yet?
I've never read that one.
Never read that one. Okay, Jolene has left. Okay. What's that?
He's at Jacoby?
Jolene. But her daughter's name is Jacoby. I just call her that.
No, that's it. Never mind. Okay.
Yeah. So King Richard III is actually, it is one of his history plays. It is a very good example of some of the things we've talked about: poor judgment, evil. We didn't really talk about Edgar and Edmund. Edmund being the really wicked, illegitimate brother, and Edgar being the good, legitimate son of Gloucester. But Edmund is similar. Richard III is similar to Edmund, but he's high in power. He gets himself up there to be his king, and he uses any kind of means to get there, no matter what, no matter if it kills someone or not. He's going to get there. And then you see his fall, because he has absolutely no goodness in him. Anyway. You will see the role of women in this play. You're going to see a lot of the roles of good noblemen and what their lot is in life with this kind of a leader. But this was a real leader in England. So good luck. We've got about 3 days to read that, and then we start
The Merchant.
Yes, The Merchant of Venice, which I have read and love it. Anybody else read The Merchant of Venice? Raise
I've
a
read
hand.
that. I've read that.
Okay, Carl and Nielsen have read it. Good. Okay, so we'll meet next Tuesday again, and we'll discuss King Richard III, right? And then the following, we'll talk about Merchant of Venice. Actually, yes, next week we do have class. We don't miss class because we have Thanksgiving come up. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody. I guess I can say that on Tuesday. All right, have a wonderful week. Go ahead.
Can we have pie in class day?
Oh, yes. Will you bring it?
I mean, I'll see what I can do.
Maybe if you read a little bit of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, doesn't he vaporize, or what is the word? This candy bar materializes somewhere else.
True.
Maybe you could do that. Figure that one out.
We'll see what happens.
I'll bring the whipped cream. All right. Have a great week. See you later.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.
I'm trying to stop this video and it's not working.